Hello everybody, welcome back to Read and Reread. My name is Angelia and it is time for Friday Reads. If you are new to the channel, I'm glad you're here today. Please think about subscribing if you like this video. And if you are a new subscriber, welcome, and I'm so glad that you're here. The dip that I suffered in subscribers after I had the audacity to participate in Trans Girl April has been repaired and surpassed, so I'm glad to report that. And I also want to thank Sonya from the channel An Enthusiastic Reader for giving me a shout out this week. So thank you again, Sonya, for your kind words. And if you have not visited her channel, I'm going to leave a link below, and I recommend that you check it out and subscribe to her as well. Oh my gosh, can you hear that? That's Stephen's guitar feedback in the next room. If you just heard a loud, I think we need an electrician. Anyway, check out her channel. She has really great content. She reads a lot of books that are compatible to my taste. So if you like the books that I'm talking about, I think you'll like hers as well, but they're not identical, of course, so that makes it more fun. She does a lot of good tag videos, a lot of contemporary literary fiction, international fiction, backlist titles, some classics, and she's better at incorporating nonfiction than I am. Everybody is better than incorporating nonfiction than I am. But anyway, do look at her channel. She's really fun, and thank you again, Sonya, for mentioning me. Okay, let's talk about what I've been watching this week. So we like to have, a light show and a heavy show. And so right now the light show is Ted Lasso, but we're only getting one episode a week. And we decided for our heavy show that we would go back in time and check on something we've been meaning to do for quite a while, which is to rewatch The Wire, which we often think of as our all-time favorite show, but we're not sure if we have held it up on too high of a mountaintop, and how will it hold up, or how dated will it be, or will it be good all over again. And the show first came out in 2002. And so it's been a long time, and we didn't watch it brand new either. I think we watched it on like DVDs we started like a couple years in. So we didn't watch it when it first unrolled. Anyway, so far I would say we knew that any technology that we see on the show is going to be dated. So that of course is there. And it's even a joke in the show that they were already dated because they have these old crappy typewriters, and then he goes to visit his friend at the FBI and they have computers and things. But I think that the thing that's probably going to definitely not hold up well at all is the character McNulty and his sexual antics on this show, because I remember thinking it was pretty bad when I watched it back in the day. So I think that his behavior would not hold up in a show written today, but we shall see as the plot rolls on. And I know he does go through a bunch of different rises and falls with his character development, so maybe it'll be okay. We'll see. And in the episode we watched last night was the first appearance of Omar, who is my favorite character. And it is kind of sad though to watch this, and some of the actors that are in it have passed, and so that's sad. Okay, let's move on to the books. So the first book is not something that I had planned or talked about at all, but I needed a book for the trip that I took last week. And thank you to those who asked me about my trip or wished me to be having fun. And it wasn't really that kind of trip. Stephen and I, our parents are both getting into their 80s, or some of them are in the middle of their 80s, and there's just some issues that go along with that we are trying to visit them more frequently and check on them and make sure things are going okay, or help with what we can help with. And Stephen's parents it's a driving trip, so I usually also go. But this time we decided to divide and conquer, so I flew to visit mine and he drove to visit his, and so that's where I was. And now I'm back, but the book that I read during that trip was The London Seance Society by Sarah Pinner. So I wanted something light, something that would stand up to frequent distractions and work well on an airplane. And I thought that this would do the trick. Now, in some regards, it did fit that bill. It takes place in Victorian London, and it has all these elements that seem like they would add up to a really fun read. So we have Victorian England, we have the members of a spiritualist society who perform seances. There's one woman who specializes in solving murders through seances. And she's not part of the London Seance Society, though. She's independent and she's French. But then there's this society. And we have a young woman named Lena who is wanting to find out who killed her sister. Her sister was studying with the French spiritualist. And so Lena starts studying with her as well in hopes that she could maybe find out, contact her dead sister. She's very skeptical about the whole thing, but she thinks this is the only idea that she has. And then also in the London the London Seance Society, the founder of that society has also been murdered. And that is also an unsolved mystery that might have something to do with allegations of fraud within that society. So, murders, ghosts, Victorian England, seances, all this sounded like a great recipe for a good time, but alas, it was kind of mediocre. And I was disappointed because I read The Lost Apothecary that Sarah Penner wrote a couple of years ago, and we still have that book. Stephen and I both enjoyed it. And in that one, though, my problem was I really liked the historical part of the story, but then the contemporary part was weaker, in my opinion. And so when I saw that this one was entirely set in Victorian England, I thought, okay, maybe this is really going to be good. And it really was just okay. My problem with it was that it had a number of unsurprising surprises and cartoony villains. I just felt like the whole thing, the exact story and setting set forth could have been, it doesn't even have to be, super literary or anything. It still could have been just a fun romp, but better written, like more surprising. I don't know. It fell short for me. So it did the trick as far as being a diverting and light read, but it wasn't that great for me. So that was the London Seance Society. About halfway through, I started wishing that it was Sarah Waters who had written the book. And then, things could have been different, but alas. And that just gives me another opportunity to be aggravated at the length of time it has been since there actually was any new book by Sarah Waters. All right, but moving right along, the rest of the books that I have to talk about were really good books, and I have nothing but good things to say about everything else in the pile. All right, the next one, I came home and I read The Night Ship by Jess Kidd. This was my first Jess Kidd book, although I have 3 of them here. So I bought this back at the Barnes & Noble sale, and Stephen read it. He loved it. So then I came upon Things in Jars, and I bought that. Stephen read it and loved it. And then I came upon Mr. Flood's Last Resort. Stephen read it and loved it. I hadn't read anything, so I finally read The Night Ship, and I loved it. So this book, I love the structure of this book. There are 2 time periods, 1629 and 1989. And in each time period, the main character is a child of about 9 years old. And Jess Kidd really nails it with having a main child character. The children are intelligent, emotionally deep. They're not precocious or fake or a kid would never say that kind of thing. They are just so well rendered. And in 1629, Macon is a girl who is on board the ship, the Batavia, which was an actual ship and a famous shipwreck in actual history. But she is sailing to the Dutch East Indies to be delivered to her father after the death of her mother in Amsterdam. And She is traveling with her nurse, and who she loves very much, and the ship, to be a passenger on a ship in the 1600s is not something I really had ever thought about, but now I'm never going to forget it, even though I still wasn't ever there, because it is so vivid what it is like to be on the ship. And Megan finds a way to be able to sneak into places she's not supposed to go because she is one of the wealthy passengers. So she is in the nice section of the ship, but she wants to see all of the ship. She wants to see people in all the levels. She wants to go to all of the dark and creepy places. She loves scary stories. She wants to be a sailor. She does not want to be a fine lady or a girl in a fancy dress. She's a girl of action. And so she finds a way to be a lot of places that she probably shouldn't be. And she also is on the hunt for a mythical monster that she hears about that might affect the voyage of the ship. In the storyline from 1989, we have a boy named Gil, and he is also delivered to a relative. He is brought to a remote fishing island in Australia, and it is the site where the Batavia wrecked just right offshore. The wreckage is there, and scientists come and study it. Sometimes pieces from the survivors left behind on the island are found, and it is said to be haunted by the ghost of a girl named May. Gil arrives after the death of his mother to live with a very grumpy and taciturn fisherman grandfather, and he is not happy about this at all. Neither of these kids want to go and live with this other relative, and both of them liked the place that they were before, and they're grieving because they've both lost their mothers. And Gil is also an unusual kid who does not fit the mold. He's certainly not the kind of kid that wants to follow in his grandfather's footsteps and be a gruff, burly, masculine fisherman. It's just not in the cards. And so both of them are a kid who is not well suited for the role that has been set forth for them in life. And they're both just wonderful characters. And a lot of things happen in each timeline that are just separate, different things that are happening in those places. But there's these wonderful threads of parallel that Kid weaves between the two timelines and the two children. And I don't want to say more about it because enjoying that as you read it is part of the beauty of the book. But I really love this from start to finish, and I can't wait to read the other Just Kid books that we have here at the house. And there's one more book I still need to pick up for us, which is called Himself, but I've heard good things about that one as well. So I'm so excited to discover a new writer that we both love, and we can be acquiring her books and enjoying them. Okay, then I read something that I have been mentioning for months on end and then failing to read, and I finally read it. It is Elena Knows by Claudia Piniero, translated by Frances Riddle, with the bright yellow cover and the beautiful French flaps. This book was a shortlisted book on the 2022 International Booker Prize list, and I guess that's when I first began to hear about it and heard people reviewing it. And so it sounded really good to me, and I got a copy, and then I put it in my TBR for months on end, and finally I have read the book. And this book is a beautifully written book, and it is devastating. It is not a happy read. This would have been, I almost thought about taking this on the trip just because it was the right size, and it would have been the worst possible choice because there's nothing lighthearted in here. There is no humor relief or anything like that. It is very serious and heavy, but it is so good. This book takes place in Buenos Aires, and it is the story of Elena, who she is really not that old. I think that in the book it says that she's 63, but everyone assumes that she is much more elderly than her actual age because of her physical condition. And Elena has very severe Parkinson's disease, and she has to live her life between the doses of her medication, which give her a very short window when she can move. And even then, she can't move freely. She can shuffle, she can get from point A to point B. She cannot raise her head properly. She has part of the condition has stiffened her neck where she's stuck looking down. So she experiences the whole world looking at people's feet and shoes or their waist if she's sitting in a chair. She drools, she can't control because she's looking down. There's a whole passage about how hard it is to swallow a pill when you're stuck in a downward position and you can't tip your head back or swallow a good big drink of water because she has to drink through a straw. And it's just the painstaking details of her disability. It is the best written description of a disability I think that I have ever read, to really understand, and you feel like you were in there with Elena and just, willing her feet to start moving. It's just absolutely, it's heartbreaking, and it's just so well done. And anyway, so at the beginning of the story, Elena's daughter, Rita, has been dead for a few months, and Rita was found hanging in the church belfry in their village. Elena is not a religious person, but Rita was, and Elena does not feel that Rita possibly would have done this. She doesn't think that she would ever have committed suicide because it's a sin, and she really doesn't believe that she would have gone into the belfry on a rainy, stormy day, because Rita is deathly afraid of thunderstorms and lightning, and she thinks this must be murder because she never would have gone in there and done this. So Elena has been trying to get people to help her investigate this as a crime, and she has not gotten a lot of help with this. She's gotten a sympathetic ear from one police officer, but he's not really doing much. And really everybody wants her to just accept that it's a suicide, and they don't believe. She's the only one who believes it's a murder. So she sets off on a mission across the city to find the one person that she thinks might help her investigate this crime. We don't really know who this person is, and it is gradually revealed as the story takes place. And the entire story is her journey to see this person and the difficulty of getting across the city with public transportation and walking in her condition to find this person. And during the course of this, we see a lot of reflection back on her life and the years that she spent living with Rita. Rita, when she died, was 44. The two of them have a very fraught, intense relationship. Rita says things frequently to her that are very unkind, but she lives with her and is her primary caregiver. And so we see this relationship, and anyway, that's all I can tell you about it. You have to read it. Not a lot happens because it takes her all day to get across town, but yet a lot happens. So I highly recommend it, but you need to be careful, as I did, and read it when you are in the right state of mind to read something that is short, powerful, intense, and not uplifting, but just really poignant and really, really excellent. So that was Elena Knows by Claudia Piniero. On the side, in between the novels, I read The Transgalactic Bike Ride, which was edited by Lydia Rogue. The subtitle of this book was Feminist Bicycle Science Fiction Stories of Transgender and Non-Binary Adventurers. And this was one of the books I read for Trans Girl April. And this was the antidote to any lingering sadness I had after Elena Knows, because this is a very joyous little story collection. These are short stories from all different authors, and there's a little, in the back, there's biographies of the submitting authors, and the whole thing has like a very retro zine feel. It feels like a zine from the 80s or 90s, and apparently this is a whole series of feminist bicycle stories, science fiction stories. There's Bikes in Space, Biketopia, Pedal Zombies. So, but this particular one all has entries from trans or non-binary authors. And some of the stories are extremely short, like 2 or 3 pages, and some are a little bit longer. And they are science fiction. So some are in outer space, some are on other planets, some are post-apocalyptic. In all of them, the main character is trans or non-binary, but sometimes it is a major part of the plot, and sometimes it's just a description, part of the character's identity, and it's not really what the plot is about, but it's just who they are. But all of them are just so fun, and there's just a buoyancy to these stories. There's one that is about a group who finds out if they pedal together on this certain route fast enough and hard enough that they manifest lucky energy, and then they can apply the energy to things. There are other stories about defeating monsters, about intergalactic conflicts. Just really, really good time. So check it out if you are looking for something fun and fast. So that brings me to the book I'm reading right now, which is part of the BookTube Prize judging. So I can't offer my opinions about it at this time, but I can just tell you that I am reading The Daughter of Dr. Moreau by Sylvia Moreno-Garcia. This book is a reimagining of The Island of Dr. Moreau, originally by H.G. Wells, and it takes place in the 19th century on the Yucatan Peninsula. So that's all I'm going to tell you about halfway through, but I do want to share with you what I'm doing for the BookTube Prize. So I was not a judge in the first round, but I am in this round in fiction, and it is the quarterfinals. So the field of books has been cut from 48 to 24 in fiction and also 24 in nonfiction. And I am in group D. So I will put up a graphic of the books that I am going to be reading in the month of April and May, and then I submit my rankings. So I've already read 3 of the 6 books, and I have talked about them in the past, but I won't offer opinions or reviews of them currently. At the end of the entire time period after the rankings have been submitted, I will make a video about my judging experience and my rankings of the 6 books and my reviews of those books, but not right now. So out of the 6 books, I've already read Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Armfield, which is a book about a woman whose wife comes home, who is a marine biologist. She comes home from a submarine mission that went on longer than expected, and she is experiencing unusual changes. I also read Stories from the Tenants Downstairs by Sadiq Fofana, which is interconnected stories narrated by different residents of an apartment complex in New York City who are experiencing the effects of gentrification. And I also already read Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin, which is the story of a friendship between a man and a woman that began in childhood and carries on over several decades, and they work in the video game design industry. So those 3 are already done, which only leaves me 3, which is very manageable for 2 months' time. And like I said, this one came up for me first at the library, so I'm about halfway through. I also requested from the library, oh gosh, I looked up the pronunciation, but now it might escape me again, but Kakai. And that, I don't have the author either. All right, I'll put it up on the screen. But that novel is about, it is described as a feminist retelling of an epic story from Indian mythology. And that is all I know right now, but I'll give a little bit better brief description when I start to read it. And then the final book is Trespasses by Louise Kennedy, which a lot of people are reading currently because it is on the long list for the Women's Prize. And my library did not have that. I ordered it from somebody on Pango Books, and it's on its way to me and should be here maybe today or else soon. I'll also put a link to the BookTube Prize channel if you want to see more about the process and the fields of books in the other categories. So that is it. What have you been reading this week? What was the standout read or the horrendous clunker that came into your life this week. I'd love to hear about it. As always, thank you for taking time to watch this video, and I hope that you have a great weekend. If you celebrate Easter, I wish you a happy Easter. Otherwise, that's it for now, and I will talk to you again on Tuesday. Bye-bye.